welcome to this NMC OSCE training video. My name is Hannah. I am a registered UK nurse of 20 years, a experienced university lecturer of 7 years, and have been an NMC OSCE programme lead. And I'm sharing with you some of my top tips and advice for studying and also succeeding in your NMC OSCE exam. And today I'm going to talk very briefly about malpractice in your NMC OSCE. So earlier this week, I was doing a webinar with Devon International Alliance. So one of the international recruitment agencies in the UK here, and they were asking me about why candidates have different coloured pens in their API station. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about malpractice. Okay, so what is malpractice in terms of your NMC OSCE exam and how can it happen? So obviously, as you're going to be applying to go onto the NMC register, you are bound by the NMC code, and obviously any cheating or falsification of documentation and misconduct is a breach of the NMC code, and it will bring into question really your own fitness practice, which will affect your ability to go onto the NMC register. So how can it occur in your NMC OSCE? Well, really, it's any form of cheating in your OSCE exam. And that's why when you go into the exam centre, you're not allowed to take any phones, any paperwork, and you're escorted to the toilet and things like that. So you're not allowed to bring in any supporting materials. The other area it can occur is when you falsify or change your documentation when you have completed that station and moved on to another station. You carry all your paperwork around with you. So you can, some nurses, unfortunately, will falsify their documentation outside of that station, and that's taken very seriously. And the other area is when you carry on after the time has finished for that station. So if you carry on writing or carry on doing your procedure whilst the time has stopped, that is also considered as malpractice. So one of the key areas where nurses sometimes get called out and called up for in terms of malpractice is changing their documentation, especially in your API. So in your API scenario, stations, you'll have 4 different coloured pens, 1 for each station. And this is so they can detect if you are writing on station documentation outside of that station. So for example, in your assessment station, you'll have 1 colour pen. And when you're sat writing your planning, if you notice something on your assessment documentation which is wrong, if you went to correct it, you have a different coloured pen in your planning station, and they would be able to pick that up. And so it's really, really important that you don't do this. And it can be really tempting because the exam is very stressful, and you might be, again, for example, in your evaluation station, looking through all your paperwork, you might notice that you did actually make a mistake on your News 2 chart and feel tempted to correct that then. But you absolutely must not alter any paperwork outside of that assessment assess station. That makes sense. So you mustn't alter your assessment station paperwork in your evaluation station, or you mustn't alter your implementation paperwork in your evaluation station. And it can feel really tempting because you recognise you've made a mistake and you just want to correct that. But the NMC take this very seriously as falsifying documentation and consider it as malpractice. So even if you have noticed you've made a mistake, just ignore it, because actually the consequences of falsifying your documentation within your OSCE are quite significant. And remember, you're being filmed all the time. So even in your written stations, you know, where the examiner may not be directly observing you, you are being filmed. So they will pick it up on the cameras. Another area where nurses can be sanctioned for malpractice is when you don't stop when the timer has run out for your station. So as soon as that timer stops, you must put down your pen if you're writing, or you must stop your clinical intervention or your clinical skills, and you mustn't carry on with any part of the station. And sometimes, again, it can be really tempting. You've just got one signature to get in a box, maybe on a piece of documentation, you carry on past the timer. But again, that can be considered as falsifying and malpractice. So what happens if the examiner believes you have intentionally altered paperwork, cheated, or carried on after the time? Then it is quite severe sanctions, okay? So it's taken very seriously. So firstly, you will be failed across all your 10 stations, regardless if you've passed any other stations or not. You are then required to take the 10 station OSCE again as a second attempt. and you will have a whole different set of 10 stations. So it's not like a normal second attempt when you will go back and do the same stations. So you'll have new stations, new scenarios. You will also need to pay. So you'll need to pay for the 10 station retake, which is £749, the same as the first 10 station retake. And really importantly is, if you then go on to successfully pass your OSCE, you'll not automatically gain your PIN. Your registration decision goes to a registrar within the NMC, and they will make the ultimate decision whether you can be entered onto the NMC register and get the PIN. So it's really, really taken very seriously, as falsifying documentation should. So that's why I say it's, even if you recognise a mistake in your paperwork, then to just leave it, because it's better to just fail on one station than it is to be in this malpractice situation. And again, don't carry on writing up the timer again, because again, it's better to fail that one station because you're out of time, rather than being in this situation and having to repeat all your stations. So how to avoid malpractice? So it's very simple. And the first thing is, not to cheat. Whenever your timer stops whatever you're doing, okay, put your pen down and clearly finish your station. Do not alter any paperwork when you are in a different station. Even if you notice a mistake, do not alter that paperwork. That's why you have different coloured pens for your 4 API stations, so they can pick up any falsification of documentation. And really, to avoid making any mistakes, just make sure you spend your time, in that station, correctly looking at your documentation and completing it correctly. And if you have any time left at the end of your station, always go back and double check that documentation. Put your finger in every single box down that observation chart, every single part on that documentation chart, and make sure everything is completed correctly. So I hope that's been helpful if you're not aware of malpractice. Not really an easy thing to find, particularly on the NMC website, around what happens if you do malpractice. So just a quick video there for you. Like I said, I'm available for one-to-one OSCE tutoring and tutoring support. Head over to the Devon Alliance International Recruitment webinar, which I did with them this week, where they asked me a little bit more about tutoring and what I can offer, and OSCE training in general, and I share some top tips. And really the best use out of me is to do your self-study and practice, and then come to me and practice in front of me, and I will give you lots of feedback, look at things that you're missing, look at ways that we can cut time down, and I can do that both inline and on person as well. Or you can just purchase my OSCE training resources. So I've got lots of API scenarios, I've got some clinical skills videos, got professional values, evidence-based practice scenarios and care plans. You can just buy a package of OSCE resources as well, if that will help you, or just come to me and do a mock OSCE and get some feedback as well. You can email me on hannah@ames@outlook.com, nurse tutor, tutoring with Hannah. Make sure you like and subscribe. Please share my videos. Had lots of great messages from people who've used my videos and have successfully passed their OSCE first time, which is absolutely brilliant. Please share these in all your groups and like and subscribe as well.